tātou hui poari matu, kei te miha no ki a koe te tū nā Hauora whakahaere tēnei wahanga mō tātou. Kai no tātou, e te atua tēnei mātou au panongo tēnei nei kia koe, kia tata mai koe kia mātou tēnei Hauora, taino atu ki tēnei pa. Mana akatia mai kia rātou I raro I te kapua pauri I tēnei wā, rātou hoki e mauiwi ana. E pāte atu tēnei ki runga toi mō tapu. Amene.
Amene.
Welcome to our final board meeting for the year, and also a very warm welcome to the members of the public who are joining us today. We've got a reasonably short call today, given our last one was a fortnight ago, but we still thought it was important to just make sure that we clear off anything that is. So we've got until noon before
12:30 is the lunch.
At which time we welcome anyone who's available to come and share in the 2040 celebrations for our staff who have been here for 20 years. Okay, so first off, apologies. We have apologies from Josh this morning. Any others that have come in? Schedule of interests is at page 4, given noted one update.
Yeah, I promoted beyond my skills and capability.
Does anyone else have any updates?
I'll send mine to Rachel. Yes.
And any conflicts in relation to agenda items? And we move to the minutes from the public session on 30th of November, which are on page 8.
Oh, sorry. Maybe it's just it should have been sent to the but really
it should be in the calendar.
it wasn't. No. Report him right.
Okay. So to the minutes of our public session, does anyone have any amendments? No. Okay, we will note to adopt those minutes. Any matters arising? No. So on to the action items at page 12.
What are they? Tairāwhiti, yes, I've got the lowdown on the figures for that for you, and should have included those in there.
Good. Any questions on that, anyone? We move to correspondence. 2 letters from the Minister, both about funding. One for the Children's Hub and one for the electrical upgrade. With 5 and 4.5 million respectively. Any comments on those, Jim?
Yes, if you may remember that we did get the money for the generator, which was that we got $2 million, and we meant that and said actually now we look at we need to do the generator and upgrade of the electrical systems and switchboards to go with it, and so we need 4.5. So 4.5 we got.
Is it 4.5 additional to the 2 or 4.5 the total?
Cool.
You're good. And then on to the dashboard, which is at page 21. So again, I'll pass to Jim for anything to highlight here, and then if anyone's got any
Get rid of that sound because it's annoying. Yes, so immunisation rates still lagging a bit, up a little bit on the previous month, but still lagging. And so we had a meeting of our immunisation steering group yesterday and have come up with some plans around how we can redouble efforts around improving that. What we're seeing is that the joint working relationship between Tairāwhiti Health and Outreach Immunisation Service is producing some real improvements for the whānau. So we want to see if we can step that up even another level, and work with Ngāti Pro Hauora as well on in that and improving the outcomes for whānau in that area. What else is topical in there? Better helps for smokers to quit within primary care. That's an area that, Ariana, we need to have some more conversations around general practice around. I think they're missing opportunities with the phone consultations to have those similar conversations around smoking and include those statistics within their systems.
Jim, is the definition of smoking, is it extend to vaping or is it just tobacco consumption?
That is just
Only.
tobacco.
May I ask, just on the how much impact is COVID having on taking our staff away from BAU in that area? Is there any indication?
No.
Okay.
So
So if the answer is going to be yes, that would explain some of the reads on this.
no, the immunisations that are reported here, those that are generally provided in general practice. And then our OIS has always been a dedicated service to follow up those that were missed in general practice.
It is a feature across the country though, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
But
a
it's
feature
more about
across the
people not
country.
taking
Yeah, not
rather
wanting to
than the
take
capacity.
their babies out to general practice. So that's in part, what is the model? That's why we are what's been found with OIS working with Tairāwhiti Health is that combination of Tairāwhiti Health have got the relationship with the whānau, and they're coming to the home, and they're bringing the OIS nurses with the schools around vaccination all together, and so that seems to be working well. So where in the past people are presumed to be hesitant or not wanting to get their children vaccinated, in fact, actually, when you present the right opportunity, everybody's lined up and it's all go.
So if I could just continue on with that, because that's at some places 20% below the target.
Yes.
And I don't want to play the record same old story again, but so taking a different angle, is our target too high?
No, I mean the target is 95%, which allows for
5%
of the population, preferring not to have their children vaccinated, and we've got a higher percentage of that at the moment. However, as you're seeing there, no, you're not seeing there. Later on in my report, you're seeing it there, and that's not necessarily people who are declining full stop. It is people who are hesitant, people who are saying at the moment, I can't get there, or I'm just a bit worried about it, or there's so much going on around, all the swirling stuff around immunisation that is out there in the community is causing people to reflect a little bit, and which means delay, which means that targets like fully vaccinated at 8 months are not being met.
I think the other important thing to note in here that we discussed 2 or 3 meetings ago was if you're not vaccinated at 8 months, but you do get the vaccinations at 9 months, you're still counted as not vaccinated at 8 months.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have to complete it by 8 months to be there. But also, what we do see is the rates do improve over time. But the vaccination program is designed around key times when it's good to have babies vaccinated against particular diseases because they become more exposed to those. So you really do want people to be able to stick with the timings to get best value out of vaccination.
I know you'll share my frustration and probably everyone else's at the figures, but I can't recall when we've ever got close to 95%.
In a few years back?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Seems to be something anyway, it's something you just can't keep not saying something about it.
Yes.
Really.
But I think that that's always been one of the things that we are very mindful of is that even if you can get to 95%, even in that, you've probably got, I think we were estimating this morning around about 20 at least 20 to 30% of the vaccinations, maybe I'm a little high in there, but so don't quote me, of the vaccinations are actually occurring through outreach immunisation service. So, or a lot of work to try and team that up, the whānau with the vaccination. And so, that's the conversation that you just mentioned, Kim, is whether you actually have the work at the front end and you present a system, a design system that works well for the whānau at the front, or whether you come along behind. And a famous person always used to say to me, fully funded failure. So you get back to actually putting in inordinate amounts of energy and funding to get back to what if you sorted it out in the first place and provided a good option for people, then that would have solved the problem straight up. So that's it. That's really what it's about. And what we're talking about is really just providing, and to coin another phrase, access and choice for people, for whānau at the start. You know, what we're thinking about is developing two options and haven't got down to this as the traditional option, which is through general practice, and then another option through your well-child Tāmaki Hauora provider, and providing that. So you can elect which one you want to do, just as you elect who your well-child Tāmaki Hauora provider is, you elect who your general practitioner is, all of those other things that you do, and make choices about.
Okay, I'm just going to stop off here because I failed to read my agenda properly and see that Kinhe and Sonia are here to present on the Takatū Hub. So I think everyone will be aware by now that the hub has been stood up to coordinate here for COVID positive people in our community. So Hub might pull up a few somewhere and the floor is yours. And my thanks for coming along this day, but actually my enormous thanks to both of you for all of the work that's gone into it. It's been, it's an amazing piece of work.
Kia ora tātou, for those who don't know me, I'm Sonia Smith. The day job as a GM Mental Health and Addictions, and redeployed to be one of the co-leads in the setup of the Takatū Hub some 3 weeks ago, alongside Hini.
Tēnā tātou, ko hine mō te mariaho, ko te kai whakahaere mō Te Kukuhine Trust, and like Sonia got foretold at a hui that we would be doing this.
Yeah, so it's, to be honest, it's been an amazing piece of work. We've really enjoyed this and working together. So essentially we were given the brief about a week before this document landed to help support the next phase of COVID in the community. So fortunately we had good advice and intelligence from our upline around the situation in Auckland, and also what the key pieces were that we wanted to achieve, and very quickly also partnered with our public health unit, specifically health protection officers, and also primary care, all of which are at the hub, and now MSD at the hub as well, to basically put Manaaki at the front so that we're able to make that first call to positive cases, whānau, and then within a set timeline provide that Manaaki response, but also at the same time help manage expectation and open the way for health protection to follow on, and then primary care response. And the ability to coordinate that from the hub and see all the moving parts, because there is a lot of moving parts. And really, the impetus is that nobody gets left behind, that you're able to escalate and hopefully reduce the stigma. One of the big pieces of work is trying to get everyone at the start line. Not all people will be at the start line, so we're just kind of juggling some of that. There is multiple groups, obviously, with their interests and a clear stake and willing to do the best by their own communities. So the hub's embracing that and looking at how we can formulate a way for that to happen really smoothly. Meeting with a number of stakeholders, for instance. I was with Sandra this morning, first thing, Federated Farmers, to make sure that our rural folk aren't left behind. We've got MPH at the table, we've got Tūranga Health at the table, and also working with a corresponding runanga as well. So we have got version 2 of the stakeholder pack. We've got a number of copies. This should be released at the end of the day. We'll leave 8 copies for you here. And once again, that's really trying to be informing, make sure people know what to expect, be held to account to show that we're putting equity lens in there. And once again, trying to get everyone at the start line together, because we can only do it together. So no single agency holds responsibility, although we understand health's accountability in this piece and the need to do what we've done. So yeah, still kind of managing services and support, still working very closely with the ministry around the systems. That's the border control management system, which is essentially a patient management system held with primary care that we get to look into, that's adapted from the MIQ facility So the ministry should have us full access today, but actually it's the national contact tracing system alongside public health that we will be using to put our Manaaki response in. Yesterday we had a presentation from Karen Bartlett, so MSD are in the room, so that's been really, really key to make sure that those mandates can be met, that we maximise each other in terms of creating a response for whānau. So, yeah.
What might be really useful, not just for the board, but for anyone who's watching our live stream, is if you could just walk us through for the COVID positive person, like what happens for them when a positive test result comes back.
Yeah, so largely at testing, people should have firmed up their contact number, if not who their spokesperson is. So approximately 30 hours after the test, their result can land, a negative result by text or the phone call to say that you've tested positive. So that phone call happens out of the hub. So it's very much, and that's a matataki role, so very much a support welfare response, but it is a bit of a mashup with some health protection in there as well, some key components. So from there, we've adapted the welfare assessment to fit our environment, which was, and for Gisborne, for Tūranga, Tairāwhiti over summer includes water, what's your water source? And so that can be a source of stress for people, and waste management. So we've adapted that piece. So we go through the welfare assessment and we're able to enter that into the national contact tracing system. And then our goal is to provide a physical response within 3 hours with both a welfare pack and a clinical pack, which is the clinical pack is your gloves, wipes, a box of masks, and also if you're COVID stream 1, the pulse oximeter and also thermometer. So that then when the GP responds within 24 hours, they're able to get that clinical information and support them with regular check-ins. And so there's a strong coordination function and the visibility of all those moving parts to make sure that that all occurs in a timely fashion.
And the decision points around staying at home versus going into some kind of managed facility and supported facility?
So there is a SIQ escalation pathway, and we have Dallas Haynes that's also based in the hub that coordinates that. And so there's a risk matrix to help make that decision. So that's also one of the questions, do you feel safe and are you able to isolate when you are? And then working through a decision tree in relation to that.
And just last question, the COVID positive test result for someone who is holidaying here rather than a resident?
Yeah, so everyone needs a general practice. The default practice at this stage is 3 Rivers. So we'd obviously need to look at supported isolation for them. So they need a venue to safely isolate and they need a general practice until which time they can be repatriated.
And I'm presuming that repatriation is our preferred pathway for people who test positive but don't live.
It would be, because we don't know how long that journey is going to be. And to be fair, currently the supported isolation, even just a homeless population would be a huge burden on SIQ. So anyone that we can move out and about, we would exercise that function.
Okay. No.
Just kia ora, tēnā koutou. And I'm thinking of the person who tests positive has a family. So how is that factored into the response? So not just the individual, because somehow their whole family is going to be affected.
And I guess that's where we've
Not
meshed
infected.
that Manaaki and the health protection response. So in our scripting, before we even go into the welfare thing, we're asking who's in the home, what is their testing status, anyone has symptoms. And also in our systems, both national contact tracing and BCMS, you can mark a household. So you treat the household, not just the individual.
Yes.
So there's a few keys in the system that support that to happen.
And trying to discourage whānau from separating.
Yeah. SIQ isn't a punishment. It's a very high trust model. Lots of people in Tairāwhiti talking about MIQ, but we don't actually have MIQ. So that's a very extreme last option.
Is there anything in the guidance, national guidance around actually exporting, repatriating as opposed to keeping someone here? So someone come off through a last day, or they head back home for the holiday, test positive, would you say, go home, go straight home, don't stop, get home, or no, you've got early symptoms, be here for 2 weeks?
We'd say go home.
Yeah.
I'd say the safest thing for you to do is we make sure we've got the transfer between ourselves and mates in terms of clinically and all the other components of this, that they're going to a safe environment, that they've got the wherewithal there to be able to self-isolate here and take the safest option. So we discussed that with the ministry. It was agreed amongst the chief figures in the ministry last week that would be what we do. But obviously, if the person's deteriorating to a clinical situation that it's not, then obviously we need to bring it here, but we need to do that really quick assessment with them and make that decision about going there. Some people will be, from out of town, they'll be staying with whānau here, and maybe easier and better for them to stay at home, and students and people like that stay at home with the whānau and self-isolate here if they can do that. So we wouldn't necessarily expect those to repatriate, but we are really wanting to ensure people get home, because they could be, depending on circumstances, they could be in self-isolation for a significant period of time if as and when the virus passes amongst their family members. So we don't want to keep stuff here.
We can't tell them to repatriate by plane if they're positive, can we? We can't put a code for the personal plane.
No, we don't do that. So that requires us, some of our options.
Other question is in relation to the Manaki aspect. Is there anyone enrolled, maybe WINS, MSD in this regard, or advocacy with employers? Because someone said, hey, you're going to be off work for 2 weeks, and there will be a number of employment situations where there's an imbalance between the employee and maybe getting crook and the employer. I can see many circumstances in Tairāwhiti where that would exist. Is there any support role for advocacy with employers? Because you can say, oh, fine, you're off a week, you're up, you've got a job.
So MSD do have a clear function to support employers to do the employer assistance application and work through that with them.
Yep.
But there's always room for advocacy.
So MSD is a couple. All right, on you guys.
Any other questions for Hanil and Sonia? Oh, well, thank you both. Thank you both very much for coming. And all the best over Christmas. We all know that, tomorrow is the day for the Auckland border opening, and I guess, everyone's risk factor is going to go up with that. So we will be thinking of all the hard work that'll be going on through there over the summer holidays, and really appreciate the commitment that's going into it, both for both of you and for the wider teams that are in there. So kia ora. Thank you. Also, I've got something else I need to talk to you about, which I'll touch base on later today.
Oh, thanks, Mark.
That's my issue.
Kia ora. Thanks. Okay, Jim, back to you.
Yes. So on the dashboard, I think that's probably about at the moment, unless anybody's got any particular areas they want to ask about.
Questions?
Yeah, just the screening pattern's concerning. It's so far below pattern. I know we're doing a lot of work in that area, and I know it's been recognised at a national level and national evaluation, but do you perceive improvements there? It's so far in the target. That's the cervical and breast.
Oh, yes. So, although it's controversial, we did include, it's still in the SLM, service level measures planning for both of our PHOs, to put a particular emphasis about that in the next 12 months. So, working with them to try and lift those rates.
The other one was falls. I mean, it's kind of an average of 9 at 10 last month and 14 this month, and over a target of 6. So that's a safety concern. Right?
We had a good conversation about falls at CRAC meeting last week.
Oh, yes.
Around the sort of the ins and outs of falls, what one can do about that. And Neil provided some interesting feedback around some intensive work they've done around rehabilitation facilities at Auckland Hospital and the rates of numbers of falls there, which seem to be comparable. So we're not, one fall is one too many, so we're not giving up on that, but we're certainly wanting to reduce the numbers.
Luckily, the injuries from fall isn't high.
It's I think Kira would the main issue around falls for elderly people. I mean, there's a few issues around them. I mean, hospital is not a good place for elderly people unless they absolutely have to be here. So we do need to try and avoid elderly people being hospitalised because it's an environment where you are a confusing environment, in a different environment. You're used to getting out of bed at night and walking down there to the toilet and walking back, and suddenly you forget you're in a different environment and there's paraphernalia, there's other beds, there's other people around, and so you get confused, and that's when issues can occur. So we need to put we need to be thinking about what we're doing around this and trying to encourage non-admission, and then also encouraging people to get home as soon as they possibly can back to their familiar environment.
Okay. Moving right along, my report. It's only been a fortnight, so there's probably not an awful lot to talk about. I did just want to really acknowledge, even over the last fortnight, the very significant progress in the vaccination program. So when we met on the 30th of November, at that stage we were at 87% first dose and 76% second dose. At the end of this week, that had moved up to 90% first dose and 81% second dose. And we've now only got 88 doses to deliver to completely, 32 doses completely get 90%. So we've reported as 90%, but that's rounded up. So 32.
So yesterday we were at 89.9%, which is 32 doses away from 90%.
Fantastic.
And we are thinking today will be the day.
Will be the day that we really over the time.
I'm trying to get some regular updates for you. So because the magic moment may occur sometime during this morning.
Yep.
That's in advance of our targeted time frame, isn't it?
No,
It's
it's about 3 or 4 days later than what we thought.
And for Māori, those rates have come up as well. So at our last board meeting, we were at 81% and 66% first and second. And at the end of this week, that had moved up to 85% and 73%. And I think we've probably got one of certainly one of the higher rates for Māori vaccinations, which is just as well given half of our population is Māori.
Yes.
That's a fantastic result, guys. Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's so just on the vaccination program going forward. So the teams will continue to work flat tax right up until the end of next week with clinic offerings galore, the static clinics, pop-ups, drive-through, all of that kind of thing. But then over the holiday period, we're resting the teams. So we will revert to one vaccination clinic that will be at Kōwhai House. And the bulk of our vaccinators can just get a bit of a chance to have a wee bit of a break through until the middle of January. And that's just so important for them. They've been doing 7 days a week for months. So we really do need to make sure they get a chance to have a bit of a break too. I had noticed
85.6 for Māori
85.
and 73.8 second doses for Māori.
So we're so today then that'll tip us to 86% and 74% of will be how we're looking.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did have on my notes to just talk about the hub, but Sonia and you've been here this morning to do that. And just the last thing is DHB chairs meet in Wellington at the end of last week, including a session with the Minister. And the main focus of particularly the meeting with the Minister was about care over summer. with a really strong focus on regional coordination. So we already do a lot of work together as Te Manawa-taki, but that's going to get more and more as we progress through the next 6 months and the health sector becomes progressively more and more broader. And also a strong focus on preparedness, making sure that we are all COVID ready. So that was me for the last fortnight. Has anyone got any questions or matters today?
Yeah, I was going to bring it up in Jim's report, but it's relevant to what you've been saying. With the vaccination tables that Jim's got on his report, we've got under 39 still quite low. And I'm just wondering if the ones that have got the Māori that have been vaccinated, and hopefully that percentage will even go through 90, is that still 90% when we've got so many under 39s that aren't going to get there? You know, if we've got 95% of the over 60s and 85% under, is that 90?
Yes, it is.
But it's not round up on the percentages per group, it's on the total number.
Yeah, I just wonder how we handle the concerns about that age bracket under 39.
So though the age profile of who's been vaccinated, you can see in those graphs a significant shift in the younger cohort. That's really been a mix of a range of things. The time frame that shift has happened is parallel with the To My Tairāwhiti campaign, which I think has made a really big difference. And the looming at that stage vaccination passport, which for younger people I think is yeah. And it's hard to say, you know, how much of it was this and how much of it was that, but you know, as the passport the horizon became closer and closer, we went through a bit of a period of time, particularly the week before last, where our vaccination numbers were just really going up, and for that week we had the highest percentage increase of vaccinations across the whole country. Okay.
Sorry. I just wanted to just acknowledge the work of Kim as chair in the last couple of months. For various reasons, unbeknownst to me, I've been dragged into some of the regional conversations, I guess, with the trust hat on, and I have observed firsthand the level of mahi that Kim has had to step up to as chair in terms of driving the vaccination program locally, supporting Jim and the team. So I just really wanted to acknowledge Kim's hard mahi in the last few months, particularly around this extra workload on top of all the other really important work that goes on in the health system. Kim and Jim have really been working crazy hours in support of our community. So thank you accordingly.
Yeah. And I'll probably speak for Jim here too. This is just enormously important to both of us, because if we don't get there, it's our community that will suffer, and will suffer terribly. So it's just been really.
Thank you.
Now, over to you for.
Te wairo nika tā meme, huh? Yeah, 2 weeks. So probably the one major feature is that Tairāwhiti was identified to develop up a localities prototype. So that's quite exciting, I think, anyway, in for us, because the offshoot of that could be this could set the template for the whole country. So that's some of the importance around this. Now, excited, yes. In awe of the mahi that's in front of us to do that, and I'm just going to swing straight down to Nicola and say that some of the work she's already started doing into that is immense. It's actually quite an immense piece of work that needs to be done. I think that we're in a pretty good position though for all the work we've done over the years leading up to this point, particularly around Hauora, particularly around organising our communities in the response to particularly Māori concerns and needs. And so just projecting for the 2 months, 3 months, the period of time it's going to take to pull all this together, Nicola?
No, we've got a 28th of January date to get the first, or the second, or the first actual proposal back.
Yeah, so 2 months. This month and next month. Thanks. So
6 weeks.
6 weeks, yeah.
Who's come?
So
Holidays, including
yes, I just think the board, we're really going to need support around this thing, because it's a hell of a lot of extra work on top of what's already BAU. So just, and it's going to be short, sharp and punchy. So, but congratulations for that. Just noting also that Wairoa also is developing a localities prototype. Just interesting how they work so close together. It could be Wairoa's already done a lot of the establishment work in their community, so that's could be what swung them. But just noting that.
Can I just ask a question in here? So, Tairāwhiti has been quite involved in this work, and also Toitu Tairāwhiti, probably involved in ways that the DHB board hasn't been. So, where's this board's connection into the locality board?
So the original localities request came out to District Health Board in about end of August, September. And the request was broadly scoped within the cabinet minute, indicating that localities would be the way forward in terms of how services would be structured going forward. The request was, could you please provide any information that would help us work through who might be ready to see themselves going forward under a prototype. So at that stage, the transition unit knew very little about what was actually occurring on the ground. They have had a number of presentations through different avenues, including where we've had Māori Health Providers Forum. There have been a number of forums that have spoken specifically to primary and community providers to explain in further detail what the localities approach is, and the prototype sits under that kind of broad set of future direction. It was agreed, I think, almost at the start that there would be some funding invested into developing prototypes, so that across the country where people had shown approach to collaboration, well connected or in the phases of good connection, that anyone might be considered in that space. So we as a DHB have been working really closely with Māori Health Providers, and many of the examples we sent in were actually led by Māori Health Services. We've sent in things around Manaaki Tairāwhiti, we've sent in things around the document that's sitting in front of you today to say this is the kind of work that's evolved in Te Tairāwhiti. They then, I think, contacted us, was it October, November?
Mm-hmm.
To indicate that they wanted more information from us. So the providers that were participant to that input of information met with the transition unit to respond to some of the questions they had. They then went away and looked at the long list of people who might be included within consideration for prototype. That then was notified to us last week as the first indication that we were part of a long list. People who were notified were Jim, the Ngāti Hauora PHO, the Pinnacle PHO, and Amahori, as part of the IMPD development, in terms of expectation that there would be a connection between those two parts of the system. So the localities information is up and live on the Future Health site, and the people who are local, who are now coming into that conversation, have been provided with most of the information that we had provided initially. So our first indication we were part of the consideration of the long list was last week.
So for this piece of work. I think it's important that this board is regularly on it because I don't know about anyone else, but I feel a bit disconnected from what information. And I think it's really important that we not just understand how the sort of pilot is going, but also what it means for our role as governance board and what sort of changes in service provision and relationship functions and that kind of thing are in play. So can we put that on as maybe a regular part of your chief executive's report going forward? Jeff? Brilliant. Sorry.
No, that's good. It's very good. Yeah.
So now is referring to the 4 zip files that we're actually inundating the set with. But it actually profiles many of the things that you've heard updated to you over the last 2 or 3 years.
I thought you had sent the same one 4 times.
No.
Until I opened it, this is the read of files to read and stuff. It's immense. The work in front of it is immense. So don't underestimate the work that Nicholas was putting into this thing. It's huge. But I think we're in a good position actually for all the work we've done in the past around our community. So balance. But yay.
Well, I think until we are updated regularly, then I will understand the significance of what you're saying. Yeah. Mm.
It is, yeah. We have some of the information that's been provided through the transition unit is not available to provide more broadly. So one of the best things we can do is bring the information off the site to you, and then I can check in to find out what is more available now. And if it comes in through our partner channels, it's actually probably a really good way to keep the board engaged.
Just thinking, so it's got to be in by 28th of Jan. We don't meet again until February the 22nd on a Tuesday. So is there something we should do prior to that date back to the board? It's just asking. Is there anything we could do, to help the...
when you say it's got to be in by the 28th of Jan, what's
the proposal? So there's been so the information that came out last week was fantastic. Here you are, you're on the long list. They're still going through a process to see whether we're into the shortlist and then being signed off. And so the proposal is a response to the request to tell us how are you proposing to do this.
Proposal?
Sorry?
Should the board see that proposal?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Question.
Is that something to send in?
Scale here.
Is that something to send into the board for clarification, help, me whakamara matini, so get everyone a better understanding? I'm just asking. There's
kind of a mix. So normally if we're going for proposals for funding, we would generally do that and then tell you that we've been successful. I do think that this has a degree of broader exposure that would be helpful to have your knowledge input. So it's kind of strange. I have to look. The way in which the transition unit is progressing this has been through General Manager Māori and DHB CEO and GM PNF. And our approach, as I indicated, would normally, there's a proposal out, will generate how that's going. But this does have a broader implication, and our partners
scope to change.
And so we're not going to have anything until probably early January. And I think it would be really helpful if you're interested that we would share where we're up to at those stages, because likewise, Toi 2 have indicated that they have a place that they would like.
So let's do this, Nicola. Let's once you've got something ready to go, let's organise maybe a 1 hour Zoom. The board can have a look at it and then just have a feedback session, rather than having you deal with multiple emails coming in and that kind of thing.
And that should really occur before it goes to our partners for feedback. I mean, this board should Should be
Because it's a
looking at that
material
first. Yeah,
thing.
it's a material, it's got material scope components to it, as you suggest, and that's entirely appropriate.
Okay, so we will sort that out, and it will just be it won't be a board meeting, it won't be a decisions thing, more a workshop that we can just
Fine.
have a bit of time and provide feedback, and then it can carry on its way. Very good. Okay. Anything else from you?
That's the biggie.
Okay, I think we're now up to you, Jim.
Yes, well, thank you very much. Just put a few thoughts there at the start about the year that we've all just had. And I do absolutely want to echo Gavin's words around your role, Kim. You're remarkable as a chair. Clearly, in terms of my experience, I mean, not just regarding those who come before you, but you've had extraordinary times to be able to be the chair, and you've stepped up to that. And as you say, for all of us from our hearts in terms of what we want to achieve for this community. So thank you very much for that and the support you've given myself and all of the team at Hauora, Tairāwhiti and the other providers to get where we are today. So it's been a big year, and so it's going to be good if we can manage to get through the end of the year without having to manage COVID in the community as well. But as you heard this morning, we are reasonably ready for that, and still more work occurring, and I'll come back to that a little bit later around specific things that need to be happening here within the hospital part of the spectrum of services. I just got a highlight there of the month around the change that we've seen there around vaccination, really being able to dig in with our other provider partners to be able to make that change around vaccination for our community, for Māori, and that the job is not over yet, and there's more work to be doing around that, and I can let you know we're down to 24 doses to go. First doses to go now. Yeah, we're live track.
I got a and a fruit mince pie.
What's that?
And a fruit mince pie. Yep. So financially, the month was a little bit better. So we turned in a better than budget result of nearly $250,000 better than budget. So that was encouraging as well. There's a lot of additional revenue in there around covering off some of our COVID costs, but we know that not all of our COVID costs are completely covered off in that, so that if we brought that in, that would improve the situation as well. And so at current, we're definitely forecasting to be on budget by year end where we are at present. The throughput wise, nothing really much different from 2 weeks ago when you looked at those graphs, except it has got the November numbers in there now, so nothing has changed a lot within those. We've talked about immunisations. Cancer treatment was great for the month. Planned care production, we are behind, but not surprising in terms of the disruption that we've had to our planned care services. We have done reasonably well in that we haven't had the extent of impacts that we know other DHBs have had going backwards around planned care. So we have gone backwards a little bit, but not as much as what we might have done, and we're certainly working to keep on catching up with that with our additional capacity that we have. I think the sort of issue there is around our SP5 compliance. That's for people with treatment. So we've gone backwards on that. We've now got 132 people waiting more than 4 months for a procedure that have been given certainty around that. So that's a prime area we're going to be working on in the coming weeks. Bearing in mind also that we've got a reduction period over the Christmas New Year period, but that will only be 2 weeks this year. Emergency department still sending lots of people, but also managing those people with less admissions to hospital. yeah, just towards the end of that report there, just the usual sort of stuff coming through from our planning and funding team, if you've got any questions about that. And I will just then go to my last points there. Some discussion topics around clinical leadership. We've had Anil working on medical clinical leadership and put the final version of a revamped and revised medical leadership structure for the DHB is out there now, and we're in a phase of translating people over to those roles and recruiting to some of the vacancies that are there. Carl has done a presentation around clinical leadership for allied health and technical staff, which was to his executive leadership team colleagues, and which was well received after some discussions.
Robust discussion.
Yeah, robust discussion. And I know that we are also in the process of looking at nursing leadership and midwifery much better organised under Liz's leadership there. We've talked about pain care production and vaccinations, tracing and swabbing. We have been, with the advent of COVID being back in our wastewater system, probably about 10 days ago now, where the first test results came through, and then we had a series of positive test results culminating on the weekend where we had enabled some additional points in the system to be tested to see if we could find where the positive results were coming from within the system. That enabled 2 hours of testing in those particular areas, and none of those results came back positive. And the overall picture is of a declining positivity within our wastewater. So there's a couple of theories around that. Again, maybe we've had somebody that we don't know that's come into the community, who's come out of MIQ, it's still excreting the virus but no longer contagious, or possibly a person who's fully vaccinated, there's lots of theories, fully vaccinated, who's had very, very mild symptoms and has not felt the need to go and get tested, but clearly haven't passed it on because the amount of virus in our RNA in the wastewater hasn't been increasing. And I spoke to the ESR scientist on Friday evening about that, and she said, it's just nothing. Your rates are just nothing compared to what she is seeing in testing in Tairāwhiti, for instance, at present. So it's kind of encouraging that we're working on that, and we're expecting the result back from the 24-hour collection through till Monday morning today sometime.
So if you say we've dodged a bullet here.
Yes, it would appear so. So we are going to step down the swabbing centre again. We've got the capacity to step it up in a hurry if systems to change. We'll wait to see what the result is today, but if that proves to be negative, we'll step that down again, because the numbers of people coming through that are very low, and we need those swabbers and etc. to be out there helping with us on the vaccination program. We've talked about COVID in the community. Mental health and addictions facility is still progressing along. I had a good conversation with the Ministry of Health's project manager last week, and although we're a little bit behind, it's very confident we'll be able to catch that up in the next phase of that work. So that was encouraging to hear from him. Child and Youth Hub, you've seen the letter from the Minister, from the Director General. Recruitment still an issue for us. We are finding it difficult to recruit people just across the board, really, but really concerning within key clinical positions around midwives, nurses, doctors, allied health professionals. That's the lot, and then then on to clerical admin roles as well. And so we're seeing people making decisions about where they want to go and work next and what they want to do with their life, and things that they put off for a long period of time. Now I'm going to do it. And we just don't have the people coming along behind that are able to fill. So it's going to be a difficult few months ahead in that climate. Industrial relations wise, there is been some really good progress made around pay equity negotiations for our admin clerical workers and our nurses, and coming up behind that with midwives And I'm hoping that we might be able to have some progress before Christmas around admin, clerical and nurses. Oxygen and environmental, and the work is underway around improving our oxygen and the environment in our key areas like the emergency department. You may have noticed the additional buildings sitting outside the emergency department, which is to provide additional capacity within the emergency department, and needs to be linked in, physically linked into the rest of it so we can utilise that capacity. We got the word last week that we've got an additional $6 million for that work. So that includes, if you remember, we had worked out a scheme of what we wanted to do to get the place better to be able to manage people who are COVID positive within the hospital setting. And we and the government put up some money for that. And then we went to and fro with the Ministry of Health about what could be done. And there was a gap of around $1.7 million between what we said was an absolute bare minimum and wasn't bare minimum, but acceptable level, and what the ministry was able to fund out of the initial funding from government. So we've got the extra $1.7 million. And then on top of that, we've got another $3.2 million, which is for additional areas that need to be done. So Anil's been working very closely with the clinical teams and with nursing and allied health and midwifery about additional areas that need to be done. So we've got $3.2 million to do that work on top. And then we've got another $1 million for, we've got problems around aging infrastructure under the buildings, particularly around hot water and steam lines. So we've got $1 million from the government to be able to make progress around that as well. So yeah, we've got lots and lots and lots of money, and lots and lots and lots of work to do. And we are very fortunate at present to have Builder that's helping us to get on with that work. But,
How are we going with suppliers to do?
well, there's a few rate limiting steps around supplies in the country. A lot of the oxygen equipment and the ventilation work was ordered some time ago because we knew this was going to be, we're going to need it. So those things been. So I know that that's been installed at present. I haven't had any formal advice that we've got a major hold up with those items, but I know that just building products generally are difficult to acquire, and that we need building products. With a lot of the work that needs to be done is around how those things changes. So Anil and I were in the emergency department last week, where the sort of far end of the emergency department is being revamped to create 2 negative pressure areas there and a dying and docking area and staff facilities within that area. So they cleared all the areas out and were then back in the process of rebuilding that. So gradually the work will be done. The work needs to be done in the emergency department, in the paediatric ward, in maternity, in Ward 5, in intensive care unit, and in the dialysis unit. So we have to sort of plan for that, and also that was the original work, and now we've got more on top. So we're going to be sort of our builders are going to be working for a long period of time for us to get all this done. No, sorry.
No, carry on.
And then resilience and resurgence planning. We are doing a lot of scenario testing at present so that we've got systems planned. And if you do happen to wander down the corridor, you'll see our beautifully decorated with a festive theme of red and green lines on the walls, finally all coloured in, and probably will be there for many years to come. Yeah, that's my list.
Does anyone have questions for Jim?
Yeah, just on the building, Jim, the child youth, obviously we've got that kind of signed off. We've got 5 million, and it states quite clearly that if there's any extras that will be vulnerable for them, but it also states that any variations are acceptable. So with price escalations the way they're going now, how would they look at if it did get to a point where those escalations were of impact on the funding available for it, or the cost? Would they be seen as a variation, or would we have responsibility to that?
I think it would be difficult to go back and ask for more. on a project like that. Most of the projects that government is trying to complete at present are being pressured by the cost of by building costs. So there's a lot of demand on the capital available, and even though government has clearly put more money in, we would be expected to manage that one.
So we've got to self-fund any additional cost, but then the variations are accepted.
Yeah, but I think it's variations. If you wanted to do something different within the project, variations.
Yeah, it's quite.
It's variation.
The wastewater COVID testing,
Mhm.
I was just checking on the material. The last article I could find talked about tracking up 8 neighbourhood pump stations. Have we put anything out to the press about that to say that they're looking a bit negative?
Yes,
Oh,
on Saturday. Yeah, I think it's been covered in the newspaper as well. Yeah, I'm surprised that you couldn't find that one, because that was definitely the story on Saturday or Monday.
Is there an update?
Oh, I haven't checked.
I hate to miss the moment. Feel free to interrupt your report.
No update yet. You haven't got one, have you? No.
Just checking.
Anything further for Jim? Okay. Thank you, Jim. And, just while we're in this public session, I do just want to underscore your thanks to the staff here. It's been a rough year for staff, really big year. And unlike everyone else who, landing gear is coming down for most people, the landing gear doesn't come down for health staff. They will be here on Christmas Day and Boxing Day and every day after that, caring for people here and out in the community. And so I just really do want to acknowledge that and hope that everyone does at least get some moment along the way to have a bit of family time and just let some steam off. So really do just want our collective acknowledgement and thanks.
Thank you.
And to our leadership team here.
Absolutely.
Keep everyone going all of the time. So kia ora.
Kia ora.
Right, moving on. Is there anything further on the financial report, page 22, that you wanted to highlight?
No, I'm not sure where.
We're currently starting to be on budget.
So Jim, do you think the 1.5 that we've got at the moment, think that front loading phasing that you talking about a couple of meetings ago, do you think that's what allows you to say we'll still be on budget? That's the way that phasing's worked out.
Yeah.
To come current sort of numbers.
So we've got around about, I think it's actually, we took $1.8 million out and put it in the second half of the year. So that's that, and then there's at least another $500,000 in there of COVID costs that we know definitely will get the funding for that, and with the revenue in there. So yeah.
Okay, very good. And that is good news. There are no reports from board subcommittees or public session. Heather, was there anything you wanted to raise at all? No. Anyone else? Okay. And then so we move on to the state of cybersecurity, page 51. Is this here?
51. Cybersecurity. Yes. So this is, I think there was some discussion around about getting an update around what was happening around cybersecurity, because we've got about 3 audits that are happening. Because cybersecurity is important, but B, heightened by what happened at Waikato DHB during the year, and the ministry and also the DHB collectively have commissioned audits around this. So this was just really to give you an update about what is happening here, and those audit reports are due to come back soon as well.
So I have a couple of questions on this. What are our absolute critical risks that we face at the moment? Or will we not know that until the assurance reports?
Oh, well, the assurance report these reports will come back. And so there was a conversation last week at the Chief Executives meeting about what the reports of DHB by DHB are showing. And they're showing a similar picture in all DHBs, and that we can improve our cybersecurity, and that there are a lot, there's not enough people within the system to be able to run the system as well as it could be in terms of cybersecurity. So enough cybersecurity experts, and actually being able to utilise that knowledge. So there's an opportunity coming up with the move to Health New Zealand to actually centralise a lot more of that, and have it in the divisions within Health New Zealand, that sort of expertise to make it available across the whole network. That there are some protections that we can put in place generally, and one of the things that we've just done is with the latest Microsoft agreement that we've got, that has given us some higher levels of cybersecurity within that, as an example. So those are common themes. We are still, no matter what you do, we're still dependent upon decisions and actions by people utilising the system. We know that, for instance, some of the issues around Waikato last year were around individuals and what people do, and so you can put fail-safe measures in place, you can put training in place, but at the end of the day, it's that click that make there's some fundamental things, and just a timely reminder for everybody to not to use your same password for your work-related things, because often people's home systems are less watertight than business systems, and so passwords get learnt through what people do in their home systems, and then people then match that up and utilise them.
Bubble Gun 74 is uncrackable.
Okay, so that's very good.
Just another question was the next steps that are signalled, and the indications that are coming back to you about what the assurance reports are likely to be looking like. Is there budget provision in our budget for this cyber work?
Yes, there is, because we've just, as I said, we budgeted for and have just paid for this increased cyber security from Microsoft. One of the things that, of course, is happening is that with a lot more cloud operations and software as a service operations, a lot of that cyber that does a couple of things. One is it compartmentalizes more. So one of the things that happened in Waikato DHB is that when the malware got into their systems, it was able to just go everywhere across the whole of the DHB, because there was not a lot of not a lot of firewalls around within the organisation, and I'm reliably informed that we've got a lot more segregation in terms of our system. So nobody's perfect, but it would make it more difficult. So yeah, the more you build your system around software as a service, you're actually compartmentalizing even more and making it more difficult to go with. And we need the expertise and the knowledge of big players in the system, such as Microsoft, to be able to try and assist us with this. So yes, definitely we've got budget for it, and also there is additional budget being made available, and that signed off about a month ago, some additional funding for DHBs around capability, IT capability, and a chunk of that was around cyber as well.
Jim, on the IT front, I don't recall seeing anything recently updates on the Te Mahataki, is it rollout of the
clinical portal?
Yeah, we were rolling out in February, weren't we? Well, when were we rolling out?
We went live on the clinical portal 6 months ago. So there's 3 DHBs that are on the clinical portal. So Bay of Plenty, ourselves, and Lakes. Lakes are still to go live on but still to go live. So we were the three of us are joined up and utilising that system, and we're utilising interoperability software. So the other two DHBs and together, and then there's a developmental pathway around that. One of the really big and important developments coming up is an e-meds management system, end-to-end e-meds management system that we have been working on, four DHBs have been working on, and Tairāwhiti DHB are piloting it as a new system, and it's looking good. And we expect that will be available to be able to be implemented next year sometime. It's a software as a service, so it's much easier to plug it in and play it and integrate it in that way than having to stand it up on your own service and all of those sorts of aspects to it. And the cost of it seems to have come down considerably from when it was first talked about. So that's a different experience, isn't it, when the price of something does come down. And so we're expecting that would be implemented in the 22-23 year. So we're putting it in with our capital intentions to go through to Health New Zealand's capital program for 22-23.
Any more questions on cyber?
Just a quick question on, do we know those that were impacted with the Waikato cyber attack? Do we know can we isolate the group that were most at risk of either not getting communications because of what was happening at Waikato, in terms of those that missed out treatment and didn't get basic comms about attending to specialist appointments and stuff?
Yeah, I don't think we can actually definitively go down and isolate every single person, but I know that hats off to the team at Waikato DHB. It was a horrendous period of time for them to be able to live for, as they did, for days or weeks, I think it was, without any basic IT infrastructure to support them. So they worked very, very hard, and in particular around areas like cancer treatment, those sorts of areas of our teams here. So the fortunate thing for Tairāwhiti people was that the team here knew, had the technology still going and knew who was out there and who needed to be contacted, and made sure that they still got there. And very quickly they started utilising services in Bay of Plenty DHB and other places to be able to backfill the capacity, so they could get going again using manual systems to be able to see people. So I know that Waikato DHB, and I haven't seen it yet, and have you heard of it? I've done doing a review of the whole process and what happened, and so we should see in that what the impacts are.
Because it's relevant to us in the sense that we have our population attending across there as well.
Yeah, anecdotally, I know there was a couple of victims.
Yes, yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, people had treatments delayed, and they had to have treatments done in different places, and radiotherapy, those sorts of things was particularly affected by the impact of that. So the unscrupulousness of people that design systems to try and infiltrate, the downstream effects of that are. And
I'm not sure if Joe Broad actually really understand the full impact on people that don't get access to service because of systems shutting down.
It's certainly a major area and something that needs to be worked on.
Oh, okay. Generally, Quality and Safety Commission Code of Expectations, but I'm not There's a link in the agenda.
About what?
Code of Expectations. Well, I know it's just an info item, so we can leave it as info.
Yeah, I'm not sure why the link was not in there.
The link was on your agenda.
Right.
Oh, okay. It's on the agenda. Oh, yeah. Okay. Can't open it.
It's okay. We can set that up at some point. We've dealt with the Takatu Hut from Sonia and Himir. And then.
And
next
apologies, it looks like I've included the whole year of your meeting.
That's 20. I think you might have put 2021 dates in too.
April
Fool's
Joking, no.
So we don't
Apologise
need,
now.
we don't need dates post July.
No, exactly.
And also these are also Wednesday.
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 The 2021 dates. So Wednesday, the 2021. You should see the top of the page. It says 2021.
No worries. but-
Friday was an absolute.
Yeah.
No, it is Tuesdays.
It is Tuesday.
okay.
And, yeah, the calendars are already gone out, so it's all sitting at Tuesday. So I'll amend and reset it.
Good on your age.
So unless there's any general business in the public sector, that will bring our public up to stuff. So for those members of the public who are with us, thank you for joining us. We do the Christmas and hope you have nice family and break time, and we look forward to seeing you again in October.